Welcome, everyone, to the Studio 25C. I'm your host, Greg Zackwitz, and today we have a guest with us who's going to share with us how he helped create and grew multiple selling channels and how they continue to grow today. So joining me today is Brian Jefferson, the Director of Operations for Wild Horses. Brian, welcome to the studio. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to sit down and have this talk.
So I love having you here, so thanks for making the time. So Brian, I want to talk about how your company has grown, their marketing channels, lessons you might be able to share with others who are looking to do the same, whether it's through multiple channels or just one they're picking up on that you guys are using well. But let's do some level setting here. So give an idea about who Wild Horses is. So tell us a little bit about the business. What types of products you sell, how long you guys been around, who your target audience is, anything that might help the viewers today understand what you're talking about as you are talking about it.
So we sell primarily Ford Bronco parts. We specialize in the 66, 77 Broncos. We've been in business for 35 years. Started off in our owner's garage. Had a Bronco, loved it, needed some parts, drove to the Bay Area, found another Bronco, wrecked it out, took some of the parts, brought it back, had extra parts, so went on, talked to some friends in the Bay Area, sold those parts, and loved it. So he continued to do the process by finding other parts, finding other Broncos, scrapping them, taking the parts out and fixing it. Had a couple of folks come in and request his help to fix their Broncos, and it snowballed from there down the hill. And here we are, 42 employees, 2 different warehouses later, and we're primarily doing Bronco parts sales. We do some installations for the newer Broncos, but we're pretty much, our bread and butter is classic Bronco parts.
Very cool. And we're going to talk about growing multiple sales channels. Probably talk about a little bit like when you jumped into those, what stage of growth those were at when you got in there, and then kind of how you poured gas on the fire or just kind of straight line those things a little bit. I'm sure most people have an idea about kind of what those channels are. So paid search, paid social, whatever it might be. But let's kind of figure that out here. So not all channels, but which primary channels are you guys mostly using today that you're finding that you're able to scale pretty well?
So our top 3, of course, is our e-commerce site. That is world reaching. So, we have customers throughout the world. So we do a heavy amount of energy and focus on our e-commerce because it's the final point of all of our, if I can say, digital touch points where customers are touching us digitally. And so we focus primarily on our e-commerce. Second, of course, is going to be Google. The world is on Google. If you're not, marketing or spending any type of ad dollars on Google, then you're missing a really great opportunity to not only create sales, but to grow your brand and to build that brand acknowledgement and awareness. And then the third one, of course, is email, because email is just open and engaged by everyone. And then when I say the email, I also tie in the SMS together because the SMS has such a high engagement rate. So we put the majority of our efforts and ad dollars into our website overall, our Google ad accounts, also our Google Merchant Center, which helps drive the shoppers tab to get those sales going, and then our email marketing, so our email and our SMS campaigns. We do others, we're heavy in social, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and some Pinterest. Our target isn't really on the Pinterest, so we do some on Pinterest, but not a lot. And so we focus on those top 3, and we've seen a pretty awesome growth while focusing on those. So,
is the social side? I know you guys have a lot of videos on YouTube. Is that a heavy component, or is that just more to kind of feed into the Google side of things, or how are you guys using YouTube? I'm just curious because I was poking around some videos on there.
So our YouTube, Mitch, who's our director of media, so he heads up a lot of all the content that you'll see. You also see him inside of the YouTube videos itself. He uses that to build a brand. So the Wild Horses brand, for those who may not be aware of who Wild Horses are, if you're new to the Bronco community or the lifestyle, he built it to show that we're not only selling parts, but we're out there on the trails with you. You know, we're breaking parts and we're getting stuck out there and having to use some of our own recoveries to get back up and running. That Wild Horses is not just the company, but we're there. And so he uses that for brand building, brand recognition, but also we use our own parts, and our own parts are tested and approved and they work. And we're not just trying to sell you something and close the door in your face after we make a sale and, you know, get out of town. But, you know, we'll sell you the parts. And if it doesn't work, you can call us whenever we're open and spend a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, however long it takes to get your Bronco back up and running. So he uses that page to build a brand, to sell parts, but also just to bring the company from being, you know, the Amazons, the eBays of the world where you can buy a product and that's it. But you're building a relationship with Wild Horses. And so the YouTube kind of gives an insight to Wild Horses, not just the company, but Wild Horses, the brand Wild Horses, the people, the family that want your Bronco to run as best as possible and bring it out there with us and build some memories for your family and with Wild Horses at the same time. So we use it for a lot more than just selling parts. We use it to build a lifetime connection with our customers. And we have fathers, sons, grandsons who are all Wild Horses customers.
Love the background. Let's talk a second about kind of when you started taking over these different channels here. So Google, obviously, right, they got to get to your site before they sign up for emails. So you kind of have like, you know, the tail wag, not the tail wagging the dog, but I always say the legs feed the wolf, right? So talk to us about the challenges you guys were facing when you took over kind of more spearheaded direction on these different channels. And what are some of those first steps that you did that would still be applicable for brands who are looking to either accelerate, grow, or kind of fine tune what they're doing in that today? And maybe I'll let you start wherever you want, but Google seems to make the most sense here. So can you shed a little light on that for us, Brian?
Yeah, so with Google, when I came on, our accounts were set up, and we had, which I didn't realize, the Merchant Center. If you're an e-commerce business and you're selling, you must have a Merchant Center set up, and you must have a connectivity between your e-commerce site and your Merchant Center, because that allows customers to view your products right there on Google and to possibly check out if you set it up that way, or to go directly to your website and to place those orders. And so the Merchant Center cuts out a lot of the, we sold this product, they're on back order, we need to take it off. The Merchant Center allows you to handle all of that. And so one of the first things I ironed out with our Merchant Center to make sure the connectivity is happening every day. Our parts are connected and uploaded. I have it on a 6 a.m. pull. So at 6 a.m., any changes or modifications that are done, it will pull from our website, place it into our Merchant Center, and those will go live. Of course, if someone's starting out and they're making changes every hour, they can do it manually in Fetch. There's other ways to do it according to your Merchant Center, your e-commerce site as well. But just for us, the first thing I really hammered out was our Merchant Center to make sure that shopping tab on Google was accurate, at least 95% accurate. And there's always some drawbacks with that. And so I ironed out our Merchant Center. Then once the Merchant Center was ironed out, we went into our Google search terms ads and figured out what terms are people searching for us as a niche market, because the Ford Bronco is a niche market. And so I got our top 1,000 search terms, and then we added those into it. And then we actually had, it's going to sound pretty huge, but we had 14,000 terms in our Google search. And so when I took over, I found the top 1,000. There's 14,000. I found the top 1,000. I made sure those stayed active, and then went to the other 13,000, doing it, if not we deactivated it. We didn't delete it, but we deactivated it. And so, and deactivation is a lot better than deleting, because once you delete, you lose whatever type of record you had before with that. And so I went and paused and deactivated, enabled. I would say we're at 4,000 search terms, so I pretty much chopped down the entire list. And then once I was able to cut those search terms down, our budget was severely low because not a lot of ad dollars have been invested into it. And so I ramped our budget up 336%. And so the number always sounds pretty crazy, but
that's what management loves, right? They love when you come with a bigger budget.
Yeah, and so I spoke with upper management and said, this is what I'm seeing. This is what my predecessor was using and doing. I believe that if we test the waters and we do this drastic jump, we're going to see the ROI and we're going to see the ROAS come back to us. And it took less than a month after tweaking the search words, after making sure our merchant center was set up correctly. So that when that ad hit the customer screen, it was something that they wanted to see. And when they clicked on it, it gave us a higher chance to complete the purchase. And so we saw the ROI from the Google standpoint was at like a 7%. And so when I made that first initial 336 bump, we went to an ROI of 27%. And so even though the spends went up, the ROI jumped drastically as well. So, that was a drug for me. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That drastic jump, it's like, man, well, let's jump it up another 200% and see what happens, And then again, the ROI went up. And so I just for the search terms and shopping tab. Of course, back then there was different names for the campaigns. We're talking 6-7 years ago. Different names for the campaigns. And so now our budget got, pretty high, but the ROI again was coming back in. So Google was one of the top drivers, if not the biggest driver that we saw because of the amount that we put into it. Now, again, I didn't just jump the budget 336 and leave it. Every day I'm checking what's the sales, what did we get from the previous day. Every day I'm making adjustments until you're descending until you get to that that cruise altitude. And then once you get the cruise altitude, you put it on autopilot and trust that the plane's flying in the right direction, not into a mountain. And you look up and so. Yeah,
I love how you put your head out there, right? You just throw it on a chopping block. You're like, hey, let's jump this 350%. I'm good. Like, we'll figure this out. All right. So kudos to you for doing that. So quick question here you said you went through and found a bunch of the top search terms here. Did you use Google tools for those, like the publicly available tools on those, or did you use a third-party tool to figure out those key search terms?
And so I used the raw analytics. I looked at the amount of impressions, I looked at the amount of clicks, and then I looked at the amount of engagements that Google Ads had natively there. I always believe the true source of data is the best source of data. There's a lot of third-party apps that we still use, but I did a lot of tutorials on the Google Ads, how to read the Google Analytics to UA before it turned to G4. I just did a lot of self-training on interpreting the data, and so that way I could figure it out. Now, it takes time, and that's one of the industry lies is these third parties will be able to give you something in about an hour. But if you want to get great results and real results, it takes time. It didn't take me a couple of hours to go through all of those search terms. It took me like a week and a half, and it sucked because I'm on an Excel exporting this data from Google Ads into Excel. And I'm sourcing highest this, lowest this, and line after line after line, control, down, shift down, because all these, I'm not going to delete them. Oh, stop here. That takes time, but that time pays off when you start to see the ROI come back in. So I hope I answered the question about kind of on the tangent there. So.
You did. And so I've got a follow-up for you here as well. So you mentioned when you're kind of going through the story that, it didn't happen overnight. You were checking every day, making tweaks to kind of get up to that cruising altitude, as you said. So I'm sure tweaks to those ads 7 years ago are much different than tweaks you might be making today. But what were some of those early things you were looking for? Because not everything is going to convert the same. Not every product's going to convert the same, even if the ad's identical. So what were some of those things that maybe jump out in your brain and be like, hey, this is one thing we kept seeing and we changed it to this thing? And it kind of worked more universally across the board. Are there any one or two things you can think of that kind of had those, I don't want to say aha moments, but were pretty noticeable from a shift to improvement?
Yeah, I have a funny story with this. This is
love stories.
Something that I would tell anyone that's into the Google, especially now. 6 years ago, Google had recommendations, even up to 4 years ago. And the recommendations were great because they were trying to broaden the reach of your ads. Of course, the more your ads reach the customer, the more Google makes. And so Google wants to put your ads out to as many people as possible. But the goal of the business is not to go as many, but to go to the people that, need to see your ads to make the purchase. And so I used to use a lot of the recommendations. And at one point I was on autopilot and I approved all of their recommendations. And so in the search terms, there was 80 recommendations for search terms. I said, yeah, Google knows what they're doing, so approve. And so I ended up approving over 1,200 keywords. And about a week later, I'm walking through our sales floor and I hear, I'm sorry, we don't sell parts for Toyota. We don't sell parts for Subaru. I'm sorry, we don't sell parts for these random things. And about 2 weeks later, the sales guys are, hey, Brian, we're getting random calls for stuff that we don't even sell. And they're aftermarket parts, but I don't know why we keep getting all these phone calls. And we're talking 15 to 20 phone calls a day for random parts we don't sell. And I'm starting to ask myself, why? Why is this happening? And so one day I'm looking at the recommendations and I see a date and something. It's a random 1960 something car. And because we specialize in 1966 and 1977, Google was suggesting that we show ads for parts for different vehicles because they're older. And I have been approving these search words this entire time. And so now we're getting the phone calls because I've approved search terms to go into our ads, and people are seeing these ads like, oh, wow, we should sell that part. Let me call and make sure it works. So the awesome part is Google works. 100% Google works. The downside is Google will work against you if you don't do it right and you don't set up the campaigns right. And so when I think of one of the things that I would say is recommendations are great, but you have to go through your recommendations and make sure that Google's recommending something that's going to help your business instead of use up a lot of the ad dollars just to say we don't sell it and hang up. So, that's I hope that answers it, but that's a funny story that I always think about. I think of something that I wish I would have done differently.
It does, because I think there's a lot of things you can take that from that. One is we hear, and I know friends who run agencies and stuff around this, like, to your point, you trust Google to a certain point, but you can't trust them 100%, right? They are there to make money. And we've seen all the stories in the last couple of months about, them purposely, doing things to make more money and at the expense of people like you, right? So, be watchful, be mindful. I used to hear it in direct the consumer brands with email and customer service is, like, hey, walk through your customer service department or sales department based on the products you sell sometimes and ask them how things are going, because that's your indication. I think of a story with an old company I used to work with. The same thing, right? They were selling these really expensive products and the customer service just kept getting calls on the same issue. And like, oh, we can create a post-purchase series based on this to resolve those issues and to help customers out. And it completely decreased the amount of calls or customer service to take in. Reviews went up, returns went down and things like that. So I think it's always helpful to talk to other departments. A lot of people, tunnel vision, time, there's only so many hours in a day. So I think you hit on a lot of things that I think most people can probably relate to or should start doing in their own practice as well. You mentioned, what you sell is kind of a niche product. With niche product, there could be a lot of revenue in it. There could also be massive competition with niches. All right. So how do you, with your ads, how do you cut through that noise to be the differentiator? You talked a little bit about what to do after the fact, YouTube, and how you kind of create the community and things like that. But what do you do from a standpoint of cutting through that noise in a competitive world?
We know the top 5 guys, and I say 5, we're one of them, of our competitors, because the Ford Bronco is such a niche. And there's not a lot. There's 5 people you basically can get your classic Bronco parts from, us being one of them, so there's 4. And so when I came on, my original role was marketing. Now, then, I became a director of marketing. So my original role was the marketing aspect. And so I put those guys on what I call my own radar, And when you get into marketing, the 2 out of the 7 key factors of marketing is competitive analysis and your positioning. And so the things that I always did was I did a competitive analysis by finding software and also just my own knowledge of ways to track what our competitors are doing. And then this way I can make sure I'm doing it, if not better, I'm doing it differently. And that way it would affect our positioning. Of course, your position is internally different than external. And so when you're positioning yourself, you may, and I tell this to my guys, when it comes to our positioning, if I am thinking that I am right here, and in order for my customer to see the camera, they have to see me, right? But that's okay. But if our competitors are right here, we don't know what our positioning is. And so we have to make sure we know that our positioning is better than our competitors. Now, that's assuming we're not all the way over here. We aren't even in the customer's view. So the first thing we have to do in our positioning is making sure our brand, our products are lined up in front of the customer, and then we're also in front of our competitors. And so for me to do that, I created, I had some software. Back then, it was great software for all of the social third-party restrictions came on. I used Iconosquare, and Iconosquare allowed me to analyze what our competitors are doing from a social standpoint. I signed up for, give them out some secrets. I don't know if our competitors are going to watch this. So if they do, sorry. So I signed up for all of their emails. I received all of our competitors' emails because I wanted to know what they were doing. I was on their website just to see what they're doing, not to steal their tactics and their methods, but to see if we were doing it better and where we were dropping the ball. And so with us being a niche market, it's not a lot of WWE free-for-all where you have to get in the ring and there's 30 guys and it's the last man standing as the champion. For us, we're in the ring and there's only 4 other guys that we're fighting against. And so for us and our brand to stand out, we needed to stay active on social media. We needed to have our posts going every day, at least one post, and the posts needed to be engaging to our customers. We had to have an active YouTube channel where folks could come and engage with us. And then at the end of the day, we had to have the products in stock and ready to ship when the customer needed it. And then the bread and butter is when they call for that technical support on, I want to order these parts. Will they fit? How do they fit? Our guys have to have an awesome experience and the resources to find out how they could do that. And they had to do it at an extremely high professional, but at the same time, a family-oriented call. And so the way that we stood out from our competitors, and I'm making sure I answer your question, is that we, number one, engaged in every digital channel that we could. We offered services and products that our customer needed, but we gave the best customer service because we approach our customers not as customers, but as total cliche, but for us, it's real life, as a part of the family that's out there on the trail with us, wanting to have the same amount of fun and experiences that we have. And so the guy, hey, I ordered these parts on Thursday. You guys said it'd be here Friday. I'm going out on the trail on Saturday. I didn't get it. No problem. Full refund. Sorry about that. Here's some shirts for you. We'll try to make it better for you. If you have any more problems or issues, we'll take care of you. Or 2 hours on the phone with the guy trying to install the suspension kit with no frustrations, no upset. We understand we're there. And so we believe that offering those gives us the better edge over our customers. And we saw it. I saw it from a marketing standpoint. Our competitors, again, if they watch this, I'm sorry, but you can add all of their social channels together and just one of our platforms outranks theirs. So you can add all 4 of their Instagrams, Facebooks, Twitters, emails, whatever they have, and our Instagram alone would outweigh theirs because we invested so much time and resources into it to build a relationship with our customers. And so that's the way that we stand out above our competitors. It's all a thought out process when it comes to our competitive analysis and again, our positioning.
So I love the fact that you said I sign up for our competitors' emails because I am still shocked about how many brands I talk to that still don't do that. That should be step one, right? If you're doing that. Customer service, I've been saying it for years, huge differentiator nowadays. So I'm glad you brought that up as well, because I agree. Even if you give the perfect instance, right? Guy's hitting the trail, doesn't have the part that was expected by a certain time. Like that's one, it's frustrating. 2, it impacts that guy's day-to-day, his next day, right? His plan to go do things and time and resources and friends and all this stuff. So, there's real world applications from just like, product will be here the next day, right? That impacts that person's life. So I love the fact you brought up customer service, because bad things like that do happen, they continually show when that is resolved, they like you even more because they know it's going to be resolved next time if there's ever an issue. So I think you hit on some really good points there, Brian. I appreciate you bringing all those up. I want to shift a little bit more away from the paid search, unless there's something I completely neglected here that is super important, but I want to tie that over to email now. So we'll just put the simplistic term, did our paid search, our awareness, we got them over, completed a purchase, or they didn't complete a purchase, but now they're on your website. You mentioned email, now SMS as well, are major channels for you. So kind of walk us through the evolution of email if you can a little bit, maybe how you're using email today. Are you using a lot of automations? Are you doing more segmented or just scheduled sends? Can you break that down for us a little bit?
Yeah, so funny story. I got a lot of funny stories, so I'm trying to keep them short. My predecessor was a bit shotgun guy, and that's the method I call for emails. It's, I'm just going to point the direction,
blast,
pull the
spray
trigger.
And pray.
There you go.
Yeah,
and so he was a believer of it. There's no target. He did target sections. Like, forget this week he wanted to do body parts, and he would just, and it worked. And it was the template, 5 products, maybe a picture, 5 products, and that was it. The first time that I met you, Greg, was at the one of the conferences in Vegas, and we had made the switch into Toronto. And, Bronto before Bronto became what it is now, it allowed me to begin to really customize our emails to where we would, there's an actual graphic showing the part installed, some great verbiage that explains it, pricing, and they gave more of a life to the product instead of just the product picture, the name, the part number, and the price. It gave, kind of that quick life of, here's a suspension kit, but here's a Bronco that's on 3 wheels because it's going up, one of the rocks, and it's showing the suspension kit in action. And so we were able to morph from the spray and pray and the blast to more specific for the parts, and then adding on different parts as well. So once I had that set up, I was able again to create segments to our most engaged, least engaged guys that purchase this. We want to send them this, and then also get into automation and workflows. And the workflows are awesome because it really helped our cart abandonment. And so I'll fast forward into the Omnisend where we are now, and our automations are great. We actually sat down and spent 2.5 hours just on the cart abandonment workflow. And so myself, our sales manager, some marketing guys, we sat down and we went over the entire workflow. So when do we trigger the first initial cart abandonment email? Is 2 hours too early? Is 2 hours too slow? Can they purchase the order? Okay, well, we're going to go 2 hours. Is a text message 2 hours later too intrusive? Do we lose the customer? Is it no, people are expecting that? So we had to go through those and all the way down to every single line inside of the email. So the subject line, it took 45 minutes just writing out the subject line. The pre-header, we took time writing out the pre-header. We took time lining up where every single thing goes, because the cart abandonment, our cart abandonment before we did this process was an open rate of 49 to 52% from all 3 of the emails. When we made the switch, we jumped up to 66 on the first, 64 on the second, and 67 on our third email send.
That's fantastic. And then, of course,
because, we took the time to hammer it out. And the automation helps it a lot, because once you hammer it out, you're done until you go back and kind of fine tune. Aside one, our third email for the cart abandonment said, how about we get you some socks for those cold feet? And so, you got a cold feet, you want to make the purchase. So one of our customers weren't too thrilled about the subject line. So we had to come back to the table and find a new subject line that fits it, because the person wasn't.
Did you mail that person a pair of socks?
We sent them an email, I apologized and said, I'm sorry. I wanted to send them socks, but it was thought that wouldn't be the best response.
Get some branded ones at least, not just like a pack of Hanes or something, but some branded ones.
Yeah. So we ended up changing that. We didn't want to ruffle the feathers, so we did, and we found another one. But the end goal is that we jumped up 20% in our email cart abandonments, and then we added the SMS. And then, funny story, I'm always checking parts and doing different things, and so I actually got a text message 2 days ago from Wild Horses saying, "Hey, this is your friendly robot, just reminding you that you have some parts in your cart." And so we tried to make it fit into the customer. One of them says, "This is your friendly robot, reminding you that you still have something in your cart. I can get you to one of the humans and they can take care of." We tried to just add a little fun to it, so it's not the Amazon, Walmart, regular traditional, because customers, they see it and I don't want to see that, but this is your friendly robot. And so this is one of the tactics we made to add the automation. And so we made tweaks like that to our email. And now I have a list that we send primarily to, we call it our high engage. and then we have our low engaged. So our high engaged is roughly about, it's like 20,000 customers, and that open rate's at 80%. 77 to 79. So I just say it's 80% open rate. And so we've been able to fine tune what customers are looking at and continue to give it to them. And I'll give a plug for Omnisend too, which is pretty cool. Their heat map.
I'll take it.
The heat map is, you might have changed the name. Is it still heat map? I always call it heat map. And so the heat map is pretty awesome because it shows where all the actions happening on your email, and it helps us fine tune. The bottom, we have 4 heroes, our 66 early Bronco, our new Broncos, and our parts, and then scratch and dent. And I'm able to line them up according to what's getting clicks. And then I've tried different methods. Do customers really like a shop now, but does it work? And so I've added them in 6 emails, and they always click it. I thought they didn't. I thought it was a dumb thing, but our customers love a shop now button. Added a shop now. Do customers love a clickable price? They click the price at a 47% rate.
I don't think I've ever clicked the price in an email before. I don't think I ever have.
Yes. And that's what I thought too. Like, I've never done it. But if you hyperlink, you put a underline, people will click it. So I guess they want to go straight to the price that you're saying. This is the price. You said it's a price. I want to click on the price. And so take me to that price. And that's what I want to pay. And so it worked. And so the heat map allows, us to continue to craft the message. And then the SMS is just awesome. But if you're not doing SMS, you're missing out. Huge. The worst thing that will happen on the SMS is someone unsubscribed. That's the worst thing. Of course, they could report you as junk, but if you're reputable and you have their, your permission to send them a text message, they're not going to report you as junk. They're just either going to delete it or unsubscribe. But the best thing that can happen is they click your URL and you have a chance to land it. We ran a Bronco covered sale, and I typically don't send emails unless we have a specific deal or special or promotion that's really good, because I don't want to wear out the SMS and its effectiveness. It's like when you get a text from Wild Horses, it's got to be great. It's got to be a free whatever. And so we did the Bronco cover, and we sell maybe 4 Bronco covers a week, 4 to 5. We did this, and that Monday we had 27 Bronco covers. And
wow.
So I know what the numbers are. We triple, double, quadruple, whatever that number is, just from sending out that SMS, because it was a great one. Folks opened it, they saw it. It's simple. Check out, we're done. So if you're not doing SMS, you're missing out. But again, you got to do it strategically and know your audience. If the younger generation, they won't care about a lot of text, but we serve a lot of 35 to 55. So our texts don't go all the time, but when they do, they're extremely effective.
So I always say, no one listens to me, but I always say, if you're not doing SMS, you're behind, right? But I got so many questions based on your stories here. So I want to go back to cart abandonment in a minute. You said a lot of people, younger people they don't really care about SMS as much. And you're saying, oh, we have a little bit of older audience. And that is counterintuitive to the common narrative you hear about, older people don't want to get SMS messages. It's only for the younger generation. And I'll tell you that all generations do, but I'm really glad to hear you say that, because it's counterintuitive to all the lazy narratives that you continue to hear. I think my mother is a boomer and she gets SMS messages from brands, and she is not an online shopper. It's like her worst nightmare, but she still signs up for it. So interesting you said that. I want to go back to your cart abandonment for a minute, because you mentioned 66% open rate, 64, and then 67, I think, if my memory served me correctly, for the 3 messages here. Typically, you see declining metrics as the series goes on. You're kind of seeing the opposite, at least from an open rate standpoint. I'm not sure how they're converting, but you mentioned timing. Do you know offhand what your timing of those 3 messages is, as well as the timing for the SMS message in that abandonment?
So we settled on, I want to say 2 hours for the first one.
Okay.
So because our business is really different, folks could add it to their cart and then they can call and make sure that the part fits, it will stay in their cart. And so we took that into consideration to should we make it longer. But we erred on the side of caution to make it 2 hours. And so it's 2 hours, 2 days, and then 3 days. So 2 hours, the initial. After the initial's gone out, we wait 2 days. And then after the 2 days, you go into 3 days. Our SMS goes with the third push. And so the way our workflow works is customer enters the workflow because the cart abandonment's triggered 2 hours, send in the first email, wait 2 days, send in the second email, wait 3 days. If SMS, yes, then they go down into the SMS, they get a text, their email. If no, they go over to the left or right. They just get the straight email and then they're exited out of the cart abandonment. But each cart abandonment message is custom and it's different. Even when you get inside the message, it's different. And so the first one says, the basic, I don't think we use the word cart because cart is really generic. We use miss product, your product misses you, or we use, I forgot the verbiage for it, but we took a lot of time to make sure it's speaking specifically to the Bronco guy. And so it's trigger words for the Bronco guy that's going to make him open an email. And so our emails before were just, you left parts in your cart, and now we have it crafted to where it's speaking specifically to the customer. And so that's where we see it, a huge jump at that last email, to the point where the guy actually called us and said, hey, I think it's offensive, like people getting cold feet. You need to change this message. And that's our third email that's going out. And so now we have, I forgot what it is. I'd have to look it up. But the reason to speak to your point of why it gets such a climb and still has a high open rate is because, again, we spent 2 hours at a table with some snacks, some drinks and coffee. And that's a down. Okay, maybe this. Oh, that's great. We can tweak this. Your friendly robot was just someone messing around like, oh, this is your friendly robot. I'm like, oh, wait, hey, that's a great one because nobody's admitting they're using AI. Shh. Don't use the word AI. Nobody wants to admit they're using AI in their marketing, but if you're honest, you're using AI. Everybody does. And so we admitted it like, hey, this is a robot. Sorry, if you place the order online, if you've called and you placed the order and you're still getting the automation, sorry, this is your friendly robot. And so by changing that and make it customized to our customers, we saw it jump up. I would say to anyone that is watching this is you can't be cookie cutter and stand out. A cookie cutter doesn't stand out. It's a cookie cutter. You have to go and heat up the iron, shape it the way you want it to, make your own cut, and then cut your products that way, cut your marketing that way. And so that's what we had to do. We had to take the time out of our day to write 3 email messages. And now we're reaping the benefits of that. So
that's awesome. I want to go back to SMS here just for a second. I meant to say this before, and I'm old and I forgot what I was going to ask, but it popped back in my head here. So you mentioned, you gave a story about the covers, and you went from 4 to 27 on this one example for the SMS message. Do you have any idea whether it's a sheer number or just percentage of how many people are signed up for your SMS program but are not signed up for email or have unsubscribed from email? Do you have any idea what that breakdown might be?
So you're saying those that have our SMS but do not have our email?
Correct.
I don't. It's batched and it's kind of rare for us. It's so rare that I've never looked into it because every email, every SMS that I see when I go into our audiences has the email enabled. Like they're not unsubscribed, so they're all green.
Okay.
So when I see the green SMS, I always see the green email. And so it's not a number I've ever cared to look into. I may be missing that there because I've never to figure if you're receiving the messages on email and you want to on the SMS. And so, but I know we have the pop-up, and I'll give a quick caveat here. I hate pop-ups, 100%. I hate them. I hate shopping online. I get a pop-up. It's so annoying because a lot of the sites that I go to, I frequent a lot, and I've already signed up, or I know your deals because I get the email. But from a marketing standpoint, the pop-ups are phenomenal. I mean, we are getting 600, I think 600 every 9 or 10 days, but we've gained like 15 to 20,000 email signups on our pop-up in the last year and a half, 2 years. I think we've been on Omnisend for 2 years, so almost 2 years. So it's so effective. From a shopper, I hate it. But from a business, if you don't have a pop-up, you're missing the easiest way to gain and grow your list. I mean, customer comes to your site, customer sees a pop-up, new customer. I'm already engaging with this brand. Yeah, I want to see what you guys are sending out. So let me sign up. Sign up, you're done. Customer comes back, click the X. And then with the pop-up, you can set the frequency. And so ours is every 7 days, but you can do it every month. You can do it every 3 months. You can do only on certain pages, only show a pop-up when you're going to this page. And so that pop-up has grown our text message list. We're at, I think, 5,000 SMSs, and we started off with 300. And so it's grown just by that alone, the pop-up. And then also we do something with the pop-up. If you go to a specific part, we'll use a pop-up to give a promotion or a discount on the price, only for that specific product. So the pop-ups are great. Sorry, I got sidetracked there.
No, it's good. There's an old radio saying that says, play what you want at home, play what they want at work. Right. I think that applies here. You hate the pop-up, but hey, when you're at work, you got to go with the masses here. Did you think, Brian, that when you started doing SMS that it would be as either successful or as effective as it is?
No, I had hesitations because I myself, I am a notification hater. I hate seeing notifications on my phone.
You're killing this, man. What do you like?
So no. If I haven't answered it, I'll stop and I'll look at it and I'll clear the notification out. So I want to make sure I'm reading and seeing everything. And so when I see that one text message, and then also I always thought text is kind of personal, but no, it's not anymore. And so I have my hesitations about it. But when I tried it for the first time, we tried it with our roundup. Again, announcing the roundup registration is open, and we just had a flood of responses from the SMS. Like, I think we got something here. And so if you do it strategically, not overkill, it's extremely effective and it will help. Again, so my thought process with the SMS is when we talk, it needs to be something worth hearing. Not just a regular part that we're doing, but it's a Labor Day sale. By X amount, we're giving away free t-shirts, we're giving away hats, hoodies, $50 off an order, $70 off an order. So things like that. It has to be really strategic when you do it, so it compels the customer to click on that URL.
Very good. And Brian, I've kept you a long time. I'm going to keep you for a few more minutes here, but try to wrap up with a couple questions here. So let's go one more on the email side, and then we'll kind of talk more holistically here. So from an email standpoint, you mentioned cart abandonment workflow. You have a pop-up. I'm assuming you have a welcome series. Going to be an educated guess on my standpoint. Are there any automations that maybe you're not using right now, but you have in your pipeline to create, or are you satisfied with what you have now?
No, so we actually have a automation for product recommendations.
Okay.
And the product recommendations are great because once someone purchases, they'll buy a fender. Well, we sell the fender flares, we sell the emblems, we sell whatever you need to go with the fender. And so one that I have now that's disabled is a fender product recommendation. And so it's disabled because we can't iron out how to differentiate between customers who have purchased Offender as well as others, because our e-commerce and our actual ERP, they're separate. And so we ran the instance to where it was active, then a customer will buy Defenders online, they receive Defenders, and then they call back and say, hey, I want to get the flares. So there's an e-commerce purchase, and then there's an over-the-phone purchase. And for our business model, because our ERP is not connected with our e-commerce, we were suggesting products that were already purchased and being more of an annoyance to our customers and getting it unsubscribed, because Wild Horse is sitting here, I already bought it. These guys not their act together. I don't want their emails anymore. Or I just rather call. I'd rather not be, burdened with an irrelevant email. And so we had to disable the product recommendations just because of our business model. But if we could, I would definitely use the recommendations, because it just keeps your relevance with your customer and letting them know that you're trying to offer them the best products for whatever they're using your product or services for. So I wish we could use that automation a lot more. But, like you said, we have the welcome series. We have the YouTube welcome series. We have the Popups. We have the automation. We have the cart abandonments. We have our transactionals coming from Omnisend as well. So, and then also a pretty cool one is when you place an order on the website, you get the transactional email. But if you're an SMS subscriber, you also get a text message with the email. You get a text message with the order. And so it's giving you your order number, it's giving you how much you spent, a logo, if they have any questions, and a tech support. So if they get the product and there's a problem, they can just click in a message and call us or email us. And it's a good follow-up, and we see a lot of customers loving the fact that we send them out that.
Yeah, I love order SMS messages myself. I got a bunch of them. Buying a bunch of stuff right now for something, and I'm getting them all the time, so I'm flooded with them. But to me, it's like I got my own folder on email, but it's a really convenient place for me to have it at my go-to, right? Just fingertips, and I love those as well. All right, final question before we get to a couple fun things here, Brian. How do you prevent your channels as you've grown them from cannibalizing one another, right? So look at think about like a browse abandonment type automation, or even cart abandonment here, right? So I abandon a cart. How are you preventing cannibalization?
So with email, that's where we fall short. Email will kill any other ad that we could run if how can I say this? So because we have a team set up to make custom content, the content that's shown on email isn't always the content that's shown on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. And so for us in our marketing processes, if we're, example, the brothel cover, you're going to see the brothel cover with a outside sunny California palm trees in the background on Instagram, because the Instagram guys love just beautiful pictures. They love beautiful reels. And so we'll shoot reels with that. For the email, you'll see us still in the shop, kind of a woody background, and that looks a little bit different. For Twitter, because Twitter's not a highly engaged one, we'll take maybe the Facebook one, and the Facebook one will look different. And so on all of our platforms, the content, the product is the same, but the content created is created specifically for that market. And so for us, most of the social revenue comes from Facebook. And so our Facebook content is created with the 45 to 55 guy in mind, because that's who's on Facebook. And so we'll create it assuming that a 45 to 55-year-old guy is going to see this content. And so on Instagram, like I said, we know the younger 24, 34, cool pictures, awesome this, they want to see that. And so we'll create the cover to fit that audience. And so we kind of stop the cannibalization by creating specific platform content. But at the end of the day, the email is so effective and hitting the customer where they are when they open. When I wake up, start my day, I'm on my emails. And most of the time, someone will get to their email before they get to their social. And our base, the guy that's purchasing is 45, 55, they're going to be on their email before their social. And so if they see it on their email first, they're more likely to make a purchase. And the email is going to gain that purchase before social even has a chance. And so the email kind of kills a lot of the social because it's more effective and it's more personal. And so it's not a bad cannibalization for us. It's just the email in its nature is more personal and effective. And so it kind of sucks the wind out of seeing it on email, and then you go on social and you see it. It's like, yeah, I saw that. That's cool. Or I've already purchased that. I'll keep scrolling.
Very good. Brian, anything I maybe neglected to ask you today that you think is imperative for anyone watching today to kind of know about their channels, managing, growing, whatever it might be?
Yeah, it's, it takes time. I stood in the building. I started our Facebook from zero. No, I got it at 300 followers. I started our Instagram at zero. I created the page. I started our Twitter. And it took hours of engaging with customers and putting out content and building to where we are now. And I think our Facebook is like at 150,000. Our Instagram's at 106,000. And then all the other platforms there. So it takes time to build these channels. Don't pay for third-party software to build a channel. That's the easiest way to get your followers deleted when they purge followers, and also for Instagram and Facebook and all these platforms, just to take your page and deactivate it and shut it down from you. So you can lose your brand by paying for it. So I wouldn't. When you're building it, it takes work, just like building a house. You gotta hammer the nail in yourself, and it's better for your home when you build it yourself. Even if you don't know how, Googling it, finding ways to learn how to do it, and then doing it yourself versus hiring someone. Because when you hire someone, at some point, you might have to fire them and they might quit. Now you're stuck with the house and you don't know how to put the door on. And so you take the time to build the channels. It took years for me to build the channels. And then a little note to myself I wish I would have done is when I was building these channels, write down processes to the things that I was doing. So now the team that I have, I could simply hand off these processes to them and they could run it. With social media, I had an engagement plan on how to engage with customers, and I had it in my head. And when we hired our first social media marketing person, I had to go back and write down everything and write down all the processes. And I wish that I would have been logged in and making these processes with the future in mind, saying, I'm doing this now, but I won't be doing this in 3 years. And so when I'm not doing this in 3 years, I hate to write down what I'm doing so the person doing this in 3 years could do it for me. And now we're 7 guys in, and it would have been a lot easier for me to log all the things that I was doing in some process and able to hand it off to them so the ship doesn't stop rolling for me to train or teach somebody. And so when you are building these channels, you got to build processes and not just, I like to do this. Well, this is a process to doing it. We're going to post once a day at 4 o'clock or at this or at that. This is a post. And then that's the process you hand off to the next person. So you're creating a system to build channels, and you're not just building channels, but you're making a system that you can give to someone to operate on their core. So, yeah, I have a habit of talking a lot, and so when it comes to marketing and this type of stuff, so I like to talk about it. So it's I know I can pretty winded.
Well, it's awesome. I told you in the pre-show, I said my goal is to talk the least amount possible and let you run with it. So this was a good mix. I think really good advice, though. I love it because I think, one, it's challenging for people to kind of think long-term from a process standpoint. But it's also really challenging if you're, say, a solopreneur or you have a really small team, maybe 2-3 people, and you have your hands in all sorts of stuff. It's more on getting the task done than getting the task done and repeatable, right? From a, like you said, a process standpoint. So I think it's really nice for people just to hear, right? To kind of remind them, it's like, hey, you know what? Even if you hire, I don't know, bad example, but even if it's just like a fibber person, right? To do something temporary to give you some time, having a process in place rather than having to type it out or spell it out or whatever at that point is helpful. So I think it's a really great piece of advice. Thank you.
I wore, still do, man, multiple hats, and the timing it takes to do it at that point, it feels like it's not worth it. But when you invest in something, you don't get the money right away. You know, you have to be patient and you have to keep working the investment, you know, moving dollars here, moving dollars there. And so I was managing, you know, we have 12 social media accounts. And then I also had just other things. I was trying to build our eBay sales. And so I was building our eBay channel. And so weekends I'll have to work and engage with people. So like you said, when you wear multiple hats, it's a lot easier to tell yourself you don't have the time. But you don't have the time right now. And if you don't make yourself or clear the time out, it's going to harm your house in the future. So whatever you're building, if you don't take time to build that specific thing the proper way and make it to where you can hand it off, then it's going to hurt you down the road. Because I spent 4 hours writing out social media processes from my head so that I can train this person who's starting tomorrow. And so now I'm trying to crunch time at, oh my goodness, he's starting tomorrow, I'll put this off. And I have to have a plan for this person who's starting to work. They're going to look to see, you know, this is the job you said I'm doing. I'll do it. There's no plan. And so if you stop and do it right then and there, and you realize the time that you think you don't have, give it to yourself, it's going to be worth it down the road. So, yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're great. So I'm here not talking. I love it. So. All right, Brian, we're going to do a quick lightning round before we get you out of here. So, one, we appreciate all the time spent with us. So, very generous with that. All right, so 6 quick questions, got answers. Just kind of a yes, no, or whatever I can lead you up with. But let's go. So, is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, because sandwiches have 2 openings. A hot dog only has one.
Even if that bun breaks. Yeah.
If the bun breaks, and that's a different subject.
That'll be episode 2. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
That's been debated for so long. Even man, what did he say? He said it's not a Christmas movie.
I know the quote you're talking about. There's a bad word in there.
Yeah, he said it's not a Christmas movie.
Yeah, but he had a reason for saying it's not a Christmas movie, which contains some profanity. He said it's a blank Bruce Willis movie.
Yeah.
So that was on the Comedy Central roast. That was awesome. All right. Right. If you put a piece of bread in a toaster and it burns, is it burnt bread or burnt toast?
These are good ones. I don't know. I guess bread. Well, I don't know. Because toast is already, bread becomes toast when it's toasted, and it's just overcooked. I guess it's burnt toast.
Okay. Peanut butter, creamy or crunchy?
Creamy.
All right. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yeah, especially with jalapenos. It's awesome.
All right. There you go. Love the jalapenos on pizza. All right. Last one. What sounds better? Peanut butter and cheese sandwich or sausage dipped in vinegar?
Vinegar and sausage actually doesn't sound bad at all. Because if you do it doesn't sound bad.
Okay. All right. That's all I got for you. So Brian Jefferson, everyone, Director of Operations of Wild Horses. If you know a four-wheeler enthusiast, be sure to send them over to www.wildhorses4x4.com, like 4x4. You get it, wildhorses4x4.com. Of course, you can find it in the video description if you don't want to listen to me. So click on it, check it out. Brian, thank you and Wild Horses for your time today, for sharing everything with anyone. Any closing comments you want to make for us?
No, just keep your hand on the pulse and keep going.